What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Noah Gray here, tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Josh's channel and check out showmefootball.com for more.
What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back into another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fann of showmefootball.com, covering your Kansas City Chiefs. He's Michael Darcy of the KC Sports Report, and we're going to be talking about how we got to this point with the Kansas City Chiefs, all that and more right after this. Ladies and gentlemen of the Chiefs Kingdom, welcome back into another video here on the Show Me Football YouTube show. Before we get into things, I do kindly ask you all to please like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. Go ahead, hit the notification bell as well for future Chiefs content. But you guys might recognize who we have on today, Michael Darcy of KC Sports Report. It's been a minute since we've gotten together, and because it's been a minute, Michael, today is just going to be kind of shooting the shit about the Kansas City Chiefs and everything that's going on right now. You've obviously been doing your thing over at KC Sports Report throughout all this time, but how are you doing right now, man? How are you holding up with the Chiefs currently sitting at 6-7 on the season?
Man, I'm hanging in there. It has been such a weird season, and it just so happens that we've probably put out more content on the channel this year than ever before. And honestly, a lot of the videos have been the same because the themes of this season have been the same for about the last 3 months.
It's so funny you say that because this season has been so exhausting for me because I always do my post-game breakdowns, and I feel like every single one is the same exact thing.
Well, they all are.
It's like one of two reasons the Chiefs lose all these games. It's either the defense can't get off the field on third down because they have no pass rush, or the offense sucks and they're too predictable and they're unexplosive and they have no running game. Like, that's literally it.
Or the penalties, the mistakes, the mental errors, all that kind of fun stuff. But
Yeah.
you know, it's funny because during the intro that you have with Noah Gray, I was like, I'm surprised he didn't drop the phone as he was, making that intro for you. I mean, it has just been a shit show for the Chiefs. I don't know the last time that we did talk, but things were definitely in a much different spot. The Chiefs were at least on the trajectory upward. That is not the case anymore.
Yeah, well, I think we were always optimistic, and because you remember a couple years ago, Michael, after the 2023 season, how bad they looked, and then they went on to win the Super Bowl, beat the San Francisco 49ers, and I said to you, I'm not doing the regular season freak out thing ever again when this team looks bad in the regular season, because they always figure it out. And this year, it's like, oh my God, they're not going to figure it out. Like, they actually suck. And it's a crazy spot to be in. And now it's like they've lost my trust, Michael. It's like the relationship where they broke your trust in the past and you decide to give them another shot and you just end up getting heartbroken again. And you're like, man, I don't know what to do at this point. Like, it really does feel like this year has been a little bit of a wake-up call to the sunshine pumping fans that we have out there in the Chiefs Kingdom. And we love all Chiefs fans, Michael. We do. Most of them, actually, I'll say. But, it always seems as if there's a section of this fan base that thinks this team is invincible and that they'll figure it out, or that, something like this is acceptable because they were around when, Tyler Palko was the starting QB. And so we should be happy even if the Chiefs miss the playoffs. No, I don't feel that way. I think what's happened this year, and I'll get your thoughts on this, but I think what's happened this year is quite honestly just unacceptable. And it's just another reason why things things already needed to change. The whole reason this has happened is because the organization has gotten complacent and things have gotten stagnant. They're stuck in their ways. They're stubborn. And that's from Brett Veach all the way down to the players. I mean, and we'll hit on all that in this episode, but it's like, we're at this point because let's be real. This team got bent over the barrel in the Super Bowl last year, and they largely brought back the same exact team and just thought it was going to get better.
Yeah, they doubled down. And here's the thing. I view it from two angles, because what they've done this year, it is unacceptable to waste a year of Patrick Mahomes' prime. But it's interesting. I don't think that they didn't believe that this team was going to be this bad. But the Chiefs have historically been correct in their choices. And I think part of that is because Patrick Mahomes has just been so good that he's just made up for so many inequities, but they're in a spot where they cannot continue to just have Pat go out there and do it all himself. Pat can't rush the quarterback, sadly. And I bet if he could, he'd be a lot better than George Karlaftis.
Yeah, you probably would.
But like the Chiefs made these decisions thinking they would be right. They were wrong. And I think Andy Reid has earned the right to have one down season. If they don't correct it next year, though, we're going to have a problem. And I don't think that, fans need to understand that just because things were always one way doesn't mean they're always going to continue to be the same way. What the Chiefs did for 7 years, no one does that. And so they've almost not earned this down year, but eventually some of those decisions they made 3 years ago were going to bite them. And they learned the hard way that, oh, shoot, this team is just, not where they need to be. But, take this as a down year where you're picking hopefully in the mid round and you can get some actual talent because, you're picking at 31, 32 every year, get actual blue chip prospects in this system, change the way you do things on offense. I mean, there's a lot of change that needs to happen. I think the concern is that they're so stuck in their ways that we won't see this change.
Yeah, well, I want to go back to what you said about how this team has typically been right, even when we have disagreed with the process. And it's interesting you bring that up because I just started talking about this after the most recent loss to the Texans. But I think part of the issue is that for so long, the Chiefs and a lot of Chiefs fans, for that matter, have looked at only the results over the process. Like, okay, last year, this running back room. Well, let's not use last year as an example because they didn't win the Super Bowl. Let's go back 2 years ago when the edge rush wasn't very good then, right? Like it was good enough that they could win the Super Bowl, but like in reality, that was not a pass rush that would have been good enough for most other teams to make it. But you had Patrick Mahomes and he covered up the blemishes, or the wide receiver room, like that's another thing you could use. And you could say, hey, Brett Veach botched the wide receiver room. And you could technically say, well, he was right about it actually because they won the Super Bowl. Well, now that the results are beginning to be unfavorable, you're not winning games. It looks like you're not going to be in the dance this year. We have to go back and say, you didn't do enough here. You didn't do enough there. And for so long, we've ignored the process because they won the Super Bowl or because they were winning games. And it's just gotten to a point where, Mahomes cannot cover up the blemishes anymore. Basically, like you just said, he can't rush the passer. He
or at
can't
least
be
all
your
of
team.
them,
Yeah. Yeah. No, he can't do it. And unfortunately, this is somewhere I think we've been headed for a while because the bad moves and the mistakes have just been compounding. And it's not only just that I think this team has made a lot of mistakes and they haven't done enough to improve, but also like Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Chris Jones, like those three are not playing at a level high enough anymore collectively that it carries this team. And that's kind of what this operation has been for the last 3 or 4 years, is those guys carrying this team in the biggest moments.
Yeah. And we talked about that for years. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't keep
This has
asking
always
Travis
been a top
Kelce
heavy
to give you
team.
1,500 yards. Like you cannot expect Chris Jones and Travis Kelce to lead your offense and defense and just make up for all of the mistakes, make up for everything else. And I do think part of the reason that they've been struggling is because the guys you have not been utilized properly. Like Noah Williams, the guy you drafted in the 3rd round, he was just pseudo benched during the middle of the season when he's been fantastic playing man coverage. Also, offensively, I don't know what they're doing with Xavier Worthy. Have him run actual routes. Like, I think he has his problems with coming back to the football and sometimes spatial awareness. But, man, it just seems like Andy Reid, the offensive genius, is pretty vanilla this year.
Well, he if we're being real, he's been vanilla for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And I don't want to turn this into a should they let go of Andy Reid video or, should they fire Andy Reid? Because, like you said, I do think he gets a down year. Now, in my honest opinion, if I had it my way, I'm I'm not saying I would fire him, but like this is still unacceptable. A down year should be like you lose in the divisional round. Like missing the playoffs entirely, I just feel like that's not a territory you should ever be in. But like you said, they're going to get a chance to fix it. Like they're not going to fire Andy Reid.
And they should. In my opinion, they shouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, and they were never going to. But I just think that, with this team, it's time for a hard reset. And you were talking about Xavier Worthy, and it seems like he's become a worse player. And there's a lot of guys you can look at and say, it's like, it feels like they came over to Kansas City or after looking really good at first, things just kind of tapered off. And Andy Reid, yes, he gets a down year, but it really has been more than one down year already. Like this year's just been really, really bad. But like this offense has been heading in the wrong direction for at least 3 seasons now. So that's kind of the pushback that I have when you say don't fire Andy Reid. And again, I'm not saying that they need to fire him. I'm not saying that they should fire him. I'm just offering, the contrasting take, which is, well, the offense, it's been a down year, at least on the offensive side of the football for 3 years now.
And you're right. And I've gotten into the argument multiple times that like Matt Nagy doesn't really do much. I mean, he might install the plays, but Andy Reid calls them and designs them. And Jesse Newell of The Athletic put out a really good piece last year about what Matt Nagy's job truly is. But I think the bigger issue, regardless of if Matt Nagy has any input on what they run or how they run it, no one is challenging Andy Reid on how they do things. Right. I mean, it took the Chiefs defense being historically bad in 2018 and then losing in the AFC Championship game to get rid of Bob Sutton. Bob Sutton sucked. So I feel like it almost takes missing the playoffs for them to make their, processes different. And listen, let's be honest, they don't really have a lot of talent. They have missed the mark a lot. And I think Andy Reid has a huge part in that. I think, I've said it on this channel before. Brett Veach makes a shopping list, or I guess makes a shopping list and Andy Reid goes shopping. Like Brett Veach goes and looks for tendencies, but the coaching staff and Steve Spagnuolo is included in this. When you make trades for Josh Uche, you got to play him. Like part of the personnel issues is that the Chiefs just don't seem like they know how to use guys properly. And we've had this argument for years.
Well, I was going to bring up Spags if you hadn't, because I remember we were in our text thread, not during this last game, but I believe it was the game before that. And I was like, Spags can go, honestly, as far as I'm concerned at this point. And I remember you said like, no, I mean, I don't think Spags should go. And here's the reason I say that. I don't think Spags is a bad defensive coordinator. In fact, I think he's actually pretty good. I think he's a good defensive play caller. The problem is, Michael, like you said, he has way too much control over the personnel. And even when Brett Veach supplies him with talent, he refuses to use it. You talked about how Noah Williams, after looking really good, essentially got benched. Well, another player that's gotten benched that we haven't really talked about is Jaden Hicks in his second season. I thought
you were saying Christian Fulton.
Well, I mean, and look, the examples are countless at this point, but Jaden Hicks looked really good as a rookie. We all thought he was going to take this jump in year 2, especially with Justin Reid being out the door. Mike Edwards was signed to the practice squad a few weeks ago, gets called up for the Texans game and out snaps Jaden Hicks. Like, expletive coming, just a warning for those listening. What the fuck are we doing? And this is exactly why I don't care if Spags, like, I'm not saying to fire Spags, same way with Andy, but am I going to shed a tear if that's like something that they do, or if he like steps away or gets hired somewhere else? No, absolutely not. Because the problem is, even though you can sit there and say Spags is a great DC, except for these things, but the problem is like, this stuff is happening because of him, because he has a hard on for certain players that just simply, Michael, would not be on another NFL. And we said it, and this is a theme that we've said a lot over the past 2 to 3 years. There's too many players on this team that simply would not be on another NFL roster or would not be starting for any other NFL team. Like Mike Edwards is washed. The Bills cut him, last year. Like this guy was floating around, not really on a team, not really playing anywhere. Derek Nottie, same story. Like it's just falling in love with players that just don't have it. And Brett Veach is out here giving them. And I have my gripes with Brett Veach too, but like we got to cut him some slack here. Like he's giving coaches the athletes necessary to compete. And Jalen Royals on the offensive side of the ball, another example. Like we all loved that draft pick, absolutely loved it. I still love it now, but it's like you got to give the guy a chance. You got to let him play. We got to see what he has, and we're just not seeing what the young guys have. This coaching staff refuses to embrace youth and athleticism. We could go on and on.
I saw something that Mike Edwards, since he, was with the Chiefs a couple years ago, left and came back, he's gained 20 pounds. Like this is not someone that should be playing.
He was getting targeted like
role.
every time he was in coverage against the Texans.
And he should, because he just shouldn't be out there. But, they also butchered Omar Norman-Lott. They made him gain weight, took away his best strength, and he got hurt because he was 20 pounds heavier and he couldn't take the weight. Like the Chiefs have tried to fit square pegs into round holes for too long, and it's worked to a certain degree. But, going back to what you said, we have been getting infatuated with the results over the process by how they do things. And I do think that they almost tried to switch that up this year with the process of going out and signing Jalen Moore and then drafting Josh Simmons. Like, okay, well, now you've got a swing tackle that you think is going to be a better swing tackle than Mike Caliendo. But guess what? Mike Caliendo still has to end up playing because of injuries. But you feel like, okay, the process there makes sense. But then they turn around and they pay George Karlaftis, who they shouldn't. Josh, we were on this. You can go back. We
got flamed for it too. We got flamed for it.
Torched. We were correct 1,000%. And they paid Nick Bolton. And I understood why they paid Nick Bolton. They shouldn't have paid him what they paid him because he is not worth it.
Yeah. No, I think the Nick Bolton contract is still passable. Like it's not great, but you're like, okay. Like he's not like I honestly think like George Karlaftis is just like grossly overpaid. Like Nick Bolton's just overpaid. I think George Karlaftis is grossly overpaid. Maybe you could say the same about Nick Bolton. I don't know. You guys can hash that out in the comments. But the problem like with George Karlaftis is as soon as he signed the deal, people were like, it'll look good in a few years though. And it's like, well, that's just a nice way of saying he's not worth the money. Like if we're just being completely honest, like take the filter out. It means he's not worth the money. And I pointed this out several times now, but Nick Bonito, the Denver Broncos, who was in the same draft class as George Karlaftis, he got extended right before the season started. His deal was like $10 million more than George Karlaftis, but the guaranteed money is almost exactly the same. Everyone was telling me that the George Karlaftis deal was a steal. And I look at Nick Bonito, who's a legit defensive player of the year candidate. That dude is awesome off the edge. The Broncos got a steal. We did not.
I'll tell you what, it's because, Nick Bonito doesn't fit the Spags stereotype defensive end. He just doesn't, which I think that should be the overall theme of this season. The Chiefs on the offensive and defensive side of the ball need to break the stereotype. You need to invest in the running game. You need to invest in athletes, and the Chiefs haven't done any of that. And it's why they're getting passed up by all of these other. I mean, look at the AFC playoff picture right now. The Patriots, the Broncos, the Colts. I mean, I guess the Colts are a little different, but all of those teams are just better than you. And I think it's because in the NFL, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. And the Chiefs have stayed the same for 3 years. And it's why they're not going to make the playoffs. And this is the biggest offseason of Brett Veach's career. Because if they mess this up, I mean, Josh, we're looking at another down season. And that could spiral. And you can't do that with Patrick Mahomes.
Well, the big issue, Michael, is the roster construction is catching up to them because they're hard up against the cap heading into this offseason. They hardly have any assets in the draft. Even if you cut all the players to get them under the cap, then you end up with like 36 players on the roster and you need 53 of them. And again, like you lack money, you lack assets. I really don't know what they're going to do. Like it's going to be hard. And McDuffie,
bye.
There's been a lot. There's been a lot of conversation about whether or not he should get traded. I do not want to trade him, but you look at the assets that they have and you're like, man, we kind of need something. They already, and it's unfortunate because they already paid George Karlaftis and he's not the guy they should have paid. They should have gotten McDuffie done before. And I remember when George Karlaftis got extended, one of the reasons I disliked it was because I thought this might mean that they're not going to pay McDuffie. And everyone was like, nah, it's fine. They'll get something done with McDuffie. No way they let him go. Well, I think if you did a vote today for Chiefs fans, probably 75-80% of them are saying, yeah, McDuffie's probably gone.
And he has to. Like, you can't afford to pay a guy $30 million a year. You cannot. And I will say, I think I trust Dave Merritt a lot more than I trust Joe Cullen to get the most out of their player. Like, Dave Merritt has a history of turning corners into studs. Joe Cullen does not. I mean, there's not one example on that defensive line, specifically defensive end, that you're like, oh, that guy was a stud. We don't have that. And I just don't think you could take the cap hit. And with Noah Williams playing as well as he has so far, you draft another corner early on and you're good to go. But I think, I mean, it is abundantly clear you have got to trade, or not trade, you've got to draft a defensive end in the first round, or at least the first 2 rounds, and break the mold. Go get an athlete. Don't go get, for lack of a better term, some white dude that is just scrappy. I'm done with that. I don't want that.
No, me neither. And look, this team needs a lot. They needed to do a lot of things. And we identified that very early in the season, Michael. And we're going to talk about that, but I have a question for you. And before I ask you, we are going to go to an ad break real quick. So real quick, let's take a break, check out the message from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. One touchdown can change everything. The crowd, the momentum, the game itself, it never gets old. Feel that same rush with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Missouri listeners, listen up. DraftKings Sportsbook is now live in the Show Me State. Here's the best part. New customers bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code SHOWPICK. That's code SHOWPICK. Bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas, pass-through of per-wager tax may apply in Illinois. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer. So, Michael, I have a question for you, and we'll hit on a couple more things before we wrap up this episode. But I want to ask you, I'm curious your answer. When at this point in the season for you, were you like, yeah, this team just doesn't have it? And when I say that, I don't even mean necessarily missing the playoffs. We'll just say they're not going to win the Super Bowl. When was that moment for you?
Oh, man. I mean, there's a lot of games to choose from. I think I knew this team. I mean, throw the Super Bowl out of there. I knew this team was toast when coming off of a bye week, they looked like that against Denver. I mean, in a game of that magnitude, where if you won it, you could win the AFC West. When they came out in Denver and just looked flat and disinterested, I thought this team was done. And, you know, they beat the Colts to give us this false sense of hope, like, oh, things are changing, things are turning around. And then the season died in Dallas on Thanksgiving. That was when it ended. And, you know, I guess it technically hasn't ended yet, but I mean, that Texans loss is just nailing another nail in the coffin that this team has not showed up in big games. In fact, they're 1-4 in their last 5 games. I mean, they're not a good football team. And this is what they've been all season. They've had a couple. The one win that had me thinking, okay, maybe they're legit, is when they beat the Lions. That game was the best game of the season by far. And I thought, because at that point you were 5-3, and then it was like, or maybe you weren't. No, I think you might have been 5-3.
Yeah, I think
and
you're
then
right.
things were just different. And then, Josh, they've won 1 game since then.
That's crazy. No, that's absolutely crazy. Honestly, Michael, and it actually was right before what you just said, but the moment for me when I was like, yeah, they're not doing anything is when we got through the trade deadline, they did nothing. Because I said from right there, like, you cannot tell me you're serious about winning the Super Bowl this year and do nothing at the trade deadline. And people will probably say, oh, how do you know Brett Veach wasn't trying? You know how I know he wasn't trying? Because there were other teams that made moves. Like, like the Eagles went out and got Jalen Phillips at the trade deadline. They needed pass rush help. They got it. They're willing to give up the assets for it. The Chiefs just have not been willing to do so. And I guess I kind of understand why. But like, Michael, they could have had Breece Hall for a 3rd round pick. And I do think he would have fixed a lot of things for this team. And there's going to that 3rd round pick is going to be held out under a microscope now to see what happens with it. Because if that 3rd round pick does not turn out better than what Breece Hall could have been, fans are going to be irate, and they should be. And honestly, the history of Brett Veach 3rd round draft picks would tell you that Breece Hall is actually better than the range of possibilities. But, that conversation's been had. But we were saying since week 1, when this team came out flat against the Chargers in Brazil, and this was when we had Lucas on, we had you on, Michael, and I said it over and over again. You cannot win important games without a pass rush. And this pass rush sucks. They suck. They cannot get after the quarterback. And I said, I think it was after the Eagles game, I said, you cannot win when you can't get to the quarterback. Like, they are incapable of doing so. And that's really been one of the biggest downfalls. And then the other thing that I mentioned earlier in this episode, because it's been the other big reason why the Chiefs have lost just about every game, and I mentioned it, is that they don't have a running game. Patrick Mahomes has been their leading rusher in the majority of games this year. Teams don't take them seriously when they played the Colts and Mahomes got picked off at like the 5-yard line when he pulled the ball on an RPO and he decided to throw. It was because the Colts read it like a book, because they were like, you're not running the ball. It's just like, you got it. And and this is where the Brett Veach criticism comes in. These were issues last year, and you did nothing to fix it. And Omar Norman Lott, he got hurt right before the trade deadline, and they still did nothing, even though the defensive tackle room was the worst in the league before he got hurt. And you had defensive linemen out here going for like 5th round picks. And I'm just like, you cannot tell me that they tried. I mean, they didn't do anything. And that was the moment that told me, yeah, they're not winning this year, because you just cannot win with this team. There's just not enough on it.
And that's what's kind of scary about next year, because, I think that they're closer to making the playoffs and making a run than a lot of Chiefs fans might believe. Like, there's a portion of Chiefs Twitter that I think needs to get nuked off the face of the planet. Like, just relax, guys. But I do think, you're going to have to overhaul the defensive line, or at least get another piece or two. But the way that I view it is Charles Omenihu and Mike Dana have been so dog shit that if you get one guy that gives you 5 sacks, you just doubled your production. So, like, marginal changes will, I think, bring you in results. The question is going to be, can they change the systemic issues with the offense?
Yeah.
Because if they start running the ball from under center and setting up play action, and, the RPOs work, because guess what? If Pat's under center and takes the snap, he can put the ball in the running back's chest. And I say running back because it shouldn't be Pacheco next year. It shouldn't be. I'd be okay if you brought back Kareem Hunt, but he can only out on 3rd and 4th down. But if those, you need to get a running back. But I think if they can make those changes, the offense will look different. It just will.
Well, it's funny. They need a lot, but they don't need that much to get a lot better. Because you just mentioned how bringing in a guy with 5 sacks would basically double Dana and Omenihu. And you could say the same thing about the running back position. Hey, J.K. Dobbins, he'll probably be a free agent again this offseason. And I'm just using his name as an example. He's been available the past couple years for the Chiefs. They decided not to bring him in. But you bring him in, he's the best running back you've had in several years. And it's that guy
I think he's missed both seasons to end. He's
well, and I'm just saying, but I'm just using him as an example. It's he's going to be available probably for like 1 year, $3 million. And he would be the best running back you've had in several years. And I'm just using him as an example. Like they need to get better in a lot of places, but they don't need that much to like drastically improve. And it's because the bar is unfortunately extremely low for this team in a lot of areas.
Yeah, no, you're right. And that's why it's like, okay.
But the question is, will they break out of their mold? Kind of like you said, and I'll lay this out so we can go ahead and wrap it up. But I mean, the $1 million question is, will they make those changes, or will this coaching staff, will this front office be stuck in their ways and just run it back and act like nothing was wrong?
Oh, I think they'll make some changes. I'm not sure if that's any coaching changes. Maybe they will. I would honestly be kind of surprised. Andy Reid's not going anywhere. Steve Spagnuolo's not going anywhere. I wouldn't be surprised if Matt Nagy's here next year. I think, if you can get rid of Todd Pinkston, your running backs coach, who was a wide receiver in the NFL, and Connor Embry, who's your wide receivers coach that has never coached, like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, if you make those changes, and if you change up your offensive attack, then because again, I think it's Andy Reid's problem. All the issues, it's Andy Reid's fault. It's not Matt Nagy, who's a little slow getting the play in. It's not his fault. But I do think there is a need for a new voice in the room, because what has been happening over the past 3 years, it's not good enough.
Yeah, no, they need new perspective. They absolutely need new perspective. And I think I agree with you. I don't know if they're going to make any major changes on the coaching staff, which sucks. And it goes back to something that I was saying earlier this week. We talk about all these problems, like a lot of the problems that we've seen this year on the field. Oh, the offense is uncreative. They don't really play inspired football. Okay, well, that goes back to coaching. Like, you got to acknowledge the root cause, which is either, the coaching staff or Brett Veach or whoever. And then it's like you suggest, okay, let's make a change here. Like, if I suggest Andy Reid gets fired, and I want to clarify one more time, I'm not saying Andy Reid should be fired. I'm not saying that to everyone. But if I even merely suggest it, people will be like, what the hell are you talking about? That's stupid. And it's like, well, we just agreed that the issue is coaching. So we're not serious about fixing these issues unless we acknowledge what the root cause is and make a change from there. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And he's got some explaining to do. And I'm not talking about, oh, we got to clean this thing up. No, like he's going to have to go into the offseason and actually try to diagnose, why was this so bad? And I do think that part of the reason that they've struggled this year is that the changes that need to be made cannot be made in a single week where you're trying to prepare for another team. You just can't do it. Like, and part of it, let's be honest, they don't have the personnel to do some things. Pacheco, he's washed. The defensive line, I mean, George Karlaftis is a piece, but Mike Dana and Charles Omenihu, again, they give you nothing. Derek Nottie gives you nothing. Maybe next year, when they have more pieces, more toys to work with, they'll be better. But even then, I don't know how much change will happen. I mean, Josh, change is something that old people generally, for the most part, don't do. And Andy Reid's not a young guy. So I think he's probably going to be pretty stuck in his ways. And this will determine if he will be coaching the Chiefs in 2027.
Yeah, that's a great place to end it. Like what you had to say. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up there, guys. So make sure you go ahead one more time, like, share, and subscribe. Some more Chiefs fans can find this. Check out my work on showmefootball.com. Follow the X at showmefb. And then before we go, Michael, where can the people find you?
You guys can find me on YouTube at KC Sports Report, and then listen to me every Wednesday night on the night shift on Sports Radio 810 WHB at 10 o'clock.
There you guys have it. Everything will be down in the description below. Go ahead and subscribe to Michael. He just hit 15K subscribers. Let's keep that going for him. But that's all we got for this one. We'll see you all in the next one. And as always, go Chiefs.